Coming up, a lineup of charges shocks Iowa City.
Free Week hits downtown Iowa City.
Hawkeye basketball goes down to the wire.
A goodbye to the bitter cold. I'll have the full forecast and weather.
All that and more.
Coming up right now on DITV.
Good morning from Iowa City. It is Friday, February 21st. I'm Sam Kupras.
And I'm Ryan Lynch.
And the third member of our team, Kayla Smith, is live at the Adler Skybridge to tell us today's weather story.
Kayla, can we expect another week of below zeros?
Well, guys, you are in luck because we are finally going to start shaking off some of those awful winter temperatures. I'm here at the Adler Skybridge, where it is currently about 4 degrees outside. Now looking out onto the Pentacrest, today is going to hit a high in the upper teens with some sun before it drops down to single digits at night. Saturday is going to be a breath of fresh air as we finally warm back up into the low 30s before dwindling down to the low 20s in the evening. Now I'll have the full forecast for the rest of the week later on, but for now, let's go ahead and send it back to the studio.
An Iowa City man is facing dozens of charges for allegedly engaging in sex acts with a 14-year-old girl. 41-year-old Pablo Moisemea Aguilar is charged with 13 counts of third-degree sexual abuse, 13 counts of prostitution, and drug distribution to a person under 18. Court documents say Aguilar met with the 14-year-old several times over the summer, paying her $100 each time they met in person. Aguilar was taken into custody on February 12th with a bond set at $285,000. An environmental activist legend leaves her mark in Iowa City. The notable speaker joined university students Wednesday evening to an excited crowd. DITV's Mark Fortunato has more on the special guest.
I am at the Iowa Memorial Union, where students and Iowa residents are here to commemorate the life and works of Erin Brockovich.
The International Ballroom in the IMU was at full capacity on Wednesday evening as the Iowa City community waited in anticipation for famed paralegal Erin Brockovich to take the stage.
Last time we came to a guest lecture here, I really enjoyed it, so I'm excited.
Brockovich was greeted with a thunderous applause as she took to the stage. She joked with the audience as she recalled the 2000 movie about her career, along with sharing her interest in environmental activism.
Growing up, it wasn't about finding groundwater problems, but it was my intrigue with water.
Brockovich was instrumental in the Hinkley groundwater contamination case, where in 1993, she led an investigation against Pacific Gas and Electric, ultimately suing the company, which led to a $333 million settlement.
So I spend my time just through my observations of water.
The University of Iowa Lecture Committee's mission to bring notable speakers to campus led them to invite Brockovich for her history in environmental activism.
Being in a state like Iowa with some water quality issues, that this would be a great opportunity to talk about this.
While Brockovich is no stranger to the limelight, her visit to campus will leave a lasting impact for the Iowa City community. From the University of Iowa, Mark Fortunato, DITV.
Arts, culture, and performances ramp up Iowa City. We are going to send it out to Isabel Thayer for an inside look at some of the events.
Isabel, tell us what's been going on downtown.
Yeah, guys, downtown, the first ever Free Week has hit Iowa City, showcasing the arts and entertainment industry. It started up on Tuesday and is getting people out of their winter hibernation.
On a winter date to kind of get people out of the house. People are always looking for things to do in the winter, and it's typically a little slower season for some of our venues. So to throw a whole bunch of exciting programming that people can be a part of is a really great thing for people to come out and experience.
Events began daily at the public library and film scene in the Ped Mall. The library has events for children from storytime readings to singing, while film scene is looping a short film about the history of the Ped Mall. Events will continue for the rest of today and end tomorrow night. We will have the forecast for the week ahead. We'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
More election excitement is underway. DITV's Liz Schultz attended a meet and greet with an Iowa City City Council candidate to tell us their campaign story.
As the City Council polls in Iowa City begin to heat up, District C candidate Oliver Weiline hosts a meet and greet to engage with community members. Audience members were given the chance to ask questions and engage with Weiline as he highlighted his campaign goals. Some of these include advocating for the working community and affordable housing.
That was a really good question. I don't have an allegiance to anyone else or anything else except for working people and except for marginalized people in these communities.
Weiline won the Iowa City Council special election primary with 69% of votes. The young candidate is eager to emphasize issues including student involvement, community activism, and human rights. As Weiline's first election, he also highlighted the importance of perseverance.
There's a lot of momentum and energy around this campaign, and I think it's a lot of people's not only fear but just willingness to fight back against what we're currently seeing in the United States. And after the election, I think what I'm hoping for is that energy continues.
Weiline emphasized his excitement for post-election results.
I'm actually just really excited to get to know the ins and outs and the workings of the city, to get myself more acquainted with how it all runs.
As the election approaches, voters are able to cast their ballot early or wait until Election Day. The polls will close on March 4th and election results will follow. From the Iowa Memorial Union, Liz Schultz, DITV.
DITV's Grace Lathrop and Hannah Lipsky hosted a special guest on their segment, Word on the Street.
What we consider a flyover state is a really, really great program.
Josh Parkinson recently started teaching classes here at the university and has found a love for giving insight to students.
This business is about character, and it's about structure and story, right? And those three things, whether they are comedy or drama, have to drive everything that you write.
Parkinson has worked on many different shows, including the hit comedy series Eastbound and Down. He continued to inspire students by sharing stories and mastering writing a variety of different genres for both TV and film. Although Parkinson has only been teaching at the university since August, his classes continue to grow in popularity. Now stay tuned for an extended cut of the interview after the show. And the Iowa City Council recently met this Tuesday to discuss the future of a city icon.
DITV's Cole Krieger is live in the newsroom with the update on the City Pool project.
Thanks, guys. The Iowa City Council is undertaking a project to renovate the Iowa City Public Pool. This project is estimated to take $18 million and has been in the works for multiple years. Construction will begin in April of this year and is projected to take around a year to complete. And an epidemic across the country might see new consequences here in the state of Iowa. House File 365 proposes that if anyone illegally distributes fentanyl to someone who then dies from its use, they'll be charged as first-degree murder. The bill passed out of a subcommittee Thursday afternoon, but for now, I'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
And coming up later, girls run the world in a new issue of Time.
Plus, the week ahead and weather, and what to expect for Hawkeye Athletics over the weekend.
All that and more after the break.
In Iowa City, history is being made every day. DITV is capturing it all. Politics, sports, and art. Local, state, and nationwide. In front of the camera, behind the scenes, DITV.
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 DITV Sports.
DITV.
DITV
is capturing history.
Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in on thedailyiowan.com or listening on KRUI 89.7 FM.
Now let's take a look back to the Sky Bridge with Kayla for the week ahead and weather.
Warmer weather is on its way, so let's waste no time and get right into it. Now on Sunday, it's going to reach a high in the upper 40s and a low in the low 30s. As for Monday, we're going to be seeing some beautiful temps in the low 50s. Tuesday is going to hit the mid 40s before it drops down to the mid 30s at night. Wednesday's temperatures are going to hit up to the high 40s again with some unfortunate showers to remind us that spring's on her way. And lastly, Thursday is bringing us into the low 40s before it drops down to the mid 20s as the sun tries to peek out throughout the day. Now I am so incredibly grateful to be getting closer and closer to some beautiful spring temperatures, but let's go ahead and send it back to the studio.
Well, isn't that great news, Ryan? The weather's finally warming up. And speaking of warming up, I heard some things were warming up on the basketball court a few nights ago.
That's right, Sam. There was a big game, and DITV's Ryan Paris has more.
That's right, guys. The Iowa men's basketball team was back home on Wednesday night to take on Oregon in their first matchup as Big Ten opponents. DITV's Nick Isles has the recap of the contest.
Coming off the East Coast trip from Rutgers and Maryland, the Hawkeyes looked to make a strong homestand against the Oregon Ducks. From the start, Iowa was playing catch-up, eventually tying the game at 20-20 with 11 minutes remaining in the first half. Junior Josh Dix had an efficient first 20 minutes in the game, scoring 15 points on 6 for 8 shooting. However, the Ducks kept the Hawkeyes in check during the first half, outscoring them 26-12 in the paint. Oregon senior Nate Biddle led the charge, tallying a team high in points and rebounds with 21 and 10. Iowa responded with a strong defensive rally in the second half, causing the Ducks to go on a cold streak. The Hawkeyes eventually cut the lead all the way down to 2 points. In the final seconds of the game, it was from this spot that Josh Dix had the final attempt to send the Ducks home with a loss. Dix's final shot for the win was blocked by Biddle, his last of 3 blocks of the night.
I thought it was going in. I thought Peyton's was going in too. You know, those are looks we'll live with. We'll make them next time for sure.
The loss was a heavy one for the Hawks, as they have now dropped their 5th in the last 6 games.
Really amazing performances considering how they were guarded. You know, and disappointing.
The Hawks hope to use the emotional loss as fuel when they host the Washington Huskies on Saturday, February 22nd. From Carver Hawkeye Arena, Nick Isles, DITV Sports.
After a three-week break from competitions, the Iowa women's wrestling team will travel to Indianola this weekend for their biggest test of the season. The regional round of the National Collegiate Women's Wrestling Championships takes place on Saturday, and numerous Hawkeyes are looking to punch their ticket back to the national championship. After winning it all last season, the pressure to repeat is lighting a fire underneath the team.
So competing against the best girls in the nation, top-ranked girls, we're just continuously getting better. So even though we didn't have that competition, we still have that drive and we still have that competitive energy in the room.
15 wrestlers will compete this weekend for the Hawks, and last year all 15 that wrestled qualified for the national championships. Those who placed top 4 in their weight class will wrestle in Coralville on March 7th and 8th. And the action on the mat this weekend isn't only limited to the women's team, because the men's wrestling team also has a massive bout with number 2 ranked Oklahoma State. The Cowboys ride into town with an undefeated record, most recently beating Little Rock 25-13. But on the other side, the 13-1 Hawkeyes are coming off a dominant 37-3 win against Northwestern. Every duel has heightened importance this late in the season, but especially so when the winner will be left standing as the number 2 team in the nation.
Career. I mean, when it just means a little more, right? And so, not saying that these last duels don't mean a lot, but there's obvious reasons why this means a lot more, and I couldn't be more excited.
The match begins on Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on the Big Ten Network. And the Iowa softball team also looks to keep the bats hot this weekend as they play in the FIU Panther Invitational in Miami. The Hawks come into the tournament riding a wave of momentum after averaging over 10 runs a game and going 4-0 in last weekend's Lion Invitational. The team has games this afternoon against Lafayette and FIU, and then again on Saturday against those same teams. And the Iowa baseball team also continues their Florida vacation for a second consecutive weekend, this time in the Stetson tournament. The Hawks began their season by going 1-2 at USF last weekend, and this weekend they'll look to rely on starting pitching after Kate Obermueller and Aaron Savory tossed 10 strikeouts each in their first starts. The Hawkeyes play Notre Dame, Stetson, and UMBC on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, respectively. That's all we got for sports. We'll send it back to the desk.
Time magazine has just announced its 2025 Woman of the Year list. Time believes these 13 women went above and beyond by identifying problems, vowed to be a part of the solution, and worked toward creating a better and more equitable world. Time will release the edition in 3 different covers featuring 3 of the women on this year's list. A few names listed are Jordan Childs, Asia Wilson, Olivia Munn, and Amanda Zerwoski. Thank you for joining us online or listening on KRUI 89.7 FM.
We are here live from Iowa City every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8:30 a.m. and online anytime at dailyiowan.com.
For Kayla Smith and Ryan Paris, I'm Sam Kupris.
And for Isabel Thier and Cole Krieger, I'm Ryan Lynch.
See you again on Monday morning right here on DITV, and stay after for Word on the Street.
This week on Word on the Street, big wins and big surprises at the Grammys.
And an in-studio interview with a Hawkeye in the TV film industry.
Hello and welcome back to this week's episode of Word on the Street.
We would have been on your screen sooner, but unfortunately the snow kept us here in Iowa City and away from filming, so we have a lot of updates for you.
That's right, Hannah. To recap the awards, the Super Bowl, and our second in-studio interview. So without further ado, sit back, relax,
and here's the Word on the Street.
Josh Parkinson is currently a professor here at the University of Iowa who teaches courses in screenwriting. He has written originals and rewrites for Warner Brothers, Sony, Universal, Paramount, and has even held staff writing positions on comedy and horror series. Josh, thank you so much for being here today, and we are so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, let's get started. Our first question, just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in screenwriting.
I am originally from Texas and went to school there, grew up there, all my family's there, and was going to become a novelist.
Okay.
Starving novelist was my goal as a kid. And so that's what I went to school for. And then I went to grad school for that. And then after I starved for a while, I was like, this sucks. I would like to have some money to do things. And so I knew several people working in the screenwriting industry, and they were all having a lot of fun and doing great. And I was like, maybe I'll try that. And so I took a couple of novels I had written and tried to turn them into screenplays, and one of them turned out to be pretty good. And I got it to the people I knew who were working in Hollywood at the time and just started getting work from there. And yeah, so I lived in Los Angeles for 15 years doing that. I still do it, but I've recently moved here with my family, and because you don't really need to be there to do what I do. And so yeah, that's where we're at right now.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So what was your original screenplay that kind of skyrocketed you into this career?
It was a screenplay called Free Country. It was about these three brothers who run this tourist mine. Have you ever seen these where you can pan for your own jewels and stuff?
Yes,
in,
yes.
The mountain areas? Well, they run one of those, and the guy comes in and finds an actual ruby, and they kill him. And they try to cover it up and sell the ruby. So it's a very simple story. It's a very old story. But I'd written a novel first, and I adapted that. And people just loved that script. Not to pat my own back, but everybody loved the script, and so it got me a bunch of work.
That's awesome.
It never got made, but it's had several directors attached to it who tried to get it made, and it's just been a good sample over the years that led to lots of jobs.
That's incredible. So, like, in your opinion, I feel like screenwriting is so broad and very hard to get like that started. What in your opinion is like the golden like if you could give one piece of knowledge, what would it be to be successful?
Well, it's funny because it's different depending on what you want to do. Like, if you want to make movies, that's very different from working in television. And so I'm a broken record on this. It's like, if you want to make movies, then I say go make them. That's always what I tell people, is like, don't go to Hollywood. You're not gonna like, you'll have a much better opportunity to make the movies you want to make by finding your own money and actors and everything, and Hollywood will come to you if they end up being good. For TV, you kind of got to go to Hollywood. It's a totally different decision, life decision. And I think again, I'm a broken record on this, the only thing you can really control out there is who you make friends with. So like building up your cohort, and you got to write all the time. You got to write 4, 5, 6 things and have them ready to go when somebody's like, hey, what do you do? Like, I'm a writer. Oh yeah? What do you write? What do you want to read? I got all of it ready. You can't be like, oh, I have this great idea that I'm gonna write. You have to have them ready to go. So that would be my piece of advice, is the two things you can control are your cohort and your product. And like, I would concentrate on those two things. Yeah.
So in the Hollywood and kind of like LA atmosphere, can you just tell me what that was like? I don't know anyone that's really lived in
Los Angeles?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or that has like
I didn't live in Hollywood.
but has worked through like that kind of scene. What is it like there? I know it's very different from anything here.
Yeah, so I grew up in a town of 2,000 people in the middle of nowhere, Texas, like nowhere, like soybean fields, and it was nothing. But since then, I've only lived in cities. So I lived in Boston for a while. I went to school in Baltimore. And then I lived in Athens, Georgia for a while, which is about the same size as Iowa City.
My brother goes to UGA.
Yeah. It's fantastic. It's just like Iowa City, just the concentration is music, and here it's writing.
Yes.
You know, it's kind of funny that way.
Yeah.
But Los Angeles was like, it wasn't that big of a move for me because I'd already lived in a couple of massive cities. And I don't know, it's a city. I love cities. So my wife and I at the time didn't have any kids, so it was real easy. Kids just make everything hard. But we just kind of moved out there. We saved up a little bit of money and got a U-Haul and just moved from Athens, Georgia to there. And we'd gone out and found a place, and we also had friends there. That's another, I think, big component of moving to any new city, not just LA, but anywhere, is having people, because you're going to get lonely real fast unless you have somebody or meet a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I'm not an extrovert, so it was good to have people there, And it sucked for a while. I waited tables while I was out there for almost the first 2 years. I was waiting tables, and miserable tables. I didn't enjoy that part of it. But then Free Country had kind of taken off, and I just didn't have to do that anymore.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So while I know screenwriting is kind of, maybe it's not, and you could share some insight, but kind of a solo project when you do write it. But was there anyone in particular that you have gotten to work with that you've really enjoyed, or some really interesting people you've gotten to meet?
It's funny, again, like TV and movies are very different, because in the movie world, as a writer, you don't really interact a whole bunch with the people that end up making the movie, right? Like you can write the best script in the world, somebody's going to take it and give it to a director, and you're just not going to be a part of the process for the most part in the big movies. That's why I tell people to make their own movies here as a writer. Even if you don't know what you're doing and you have somebody else direct, you're going to be a part of the process and make a product, right? So it's kind of a solo job. You don't really work with a ton of people unless you're friends with the people who are making the movie and blah blah blah. But so on the movie side of things, I wrote a bunch of movies, and I rewrote really bad movies at studios that were terrible, and they were like, can you make this better? But I never really worked with anybody outside of like studio executives and producers who are running the show. You meet people, but I didn't really work closely with anybody. On the TV side of things, I worked on this HBO show called Eastbound and Down. It's a comedy that is getting old now. So I love those guys, Danny McBride and Jody Hill, and the people that put those things together are fantastic. I had a good time working with them. But yeah, it's like in the world of television, I feel like I've met a bunch of people, but I wouldn't say that I've like collaborated with anybody outside of a couple of directors that I wrote movies with and stuff like that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, perfectly.
Great. So these the studios you work for, big names. They control a lot of the entertainment industry and put out a lot of projects. And we're in the news about a year ago for the writer strikes and the actor strikes. What is it actually like working for one of these big studios?
Well, it's funny because the studios are all made up of people, so they're big kind of sociopathic corporations, but the people inside of them are usually fairly creative and come from places like this, or I met a lot of people from Iowa out there, but it's like, so they're normal people, right? So it's a balancing act of remembering you got to act like human to other humans, while at the same time protecting yourself from a pretty voracious like entity that wants to milk you dry and not pay you anything. That's their model, not just for writers but for America. So it's like, I don't know, it's just part of your job is you got to navigate that, and you also have help. Like I have an agent, I have a manager, I have a lawyer. All those people kind of do the navigating too for you in a lot of ways. But yeah, it's like, it's both amazing at times and terrible. And then you can feel like a little cog and get treated poorly, but you can also feel like you were part of something that everybody was super excited about. Even if it doesn't get made, everybody's happy, and you email each other every 6 months and be like, what are you working on? You know, so yeah.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned the Eastbound and Down and then you also were writing for a horror series, The Terror, is that correct? So how did, like, I mean, besides the obvious answer that one's comedy and one's horror, is it just a different kind of stylistic of writing?
It makes no sense.
Like how do
it really
you,
doesn't.
Do you tap into different skills for those?
Yeah, the screenplay, so this is a complicated answer. The screenplay I wrote, the Free Country screenplay,
Right.
it has a very specific tone to it. So it's drama, and it's very grounded, serious stuff that happens, but there's a lot of humor to it that's just built into the characters, and that's kind of a space that I like to live in as a writer. I always think this is not original, but I glommed onto it. I like to make people laugh, and the whole time they know they shouldn't be. That's where I like to go as a writer, and so both of those shows kind of had elements of that I could tap into. Definitely Eastbound and Down, but even The Terror, which that's another Iowa alum, Dave Kajanik is the guy who developed that for television and show ran it and created it basically. I was just like a writer for a very small amount of time on there. But even in that, there was something insane about the situation of what the characters were in that would make me giggle when I was writing about them, even though it's very serious stuff that's going on, you know? So I feel like this business is about character, and it's about structure and story, right? And those three things, whether they are comedy or drama, have to drive everything that you write. So if you can get your head around those three things, then you may not have the knack for jokes, but you can still write funny stuff because people are funny. They act funny, you know? So yeah, does that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So what are some of your favorite things about being both a screenwriter and a professor, and kind of combine the two about being a screenwriting professor?
Yeah. I've never taught before.
Okay.
It's the first time I've ever done any teaching of any kind, and I do like it. I feel like it's one of those things where you forget all of the stuff that you're supposed to know, and so when you have to tell other people constantly what they're supposed to be looking for, what they're supposed to be doing, it reminds you in this way that you don't even have to think about. You know, it's just like you're saying it all the time, so you're like, why? Because like I'm working on something now, and this morning I was just like, why are you not doing what you're telling your students to do? Like, go back in this scene and do the things you tell them to do, you know? So that part I love, because it just keeps me on my toes.
To watch the full episode of Word on the Street, check out the Daily Iowan website and YouTube.